What about the Dragons? Is there trouble at the Dragons? Griffin set to reapply for job as Dragons set to begin interviewing for 2024 coach. So the suggestion is that if he wants the job, he's going to have to reapply, and they're also going to interview other players for the next year's coach.
Yeah, the story's broken this afternoon in the Herald, and it's obviously a real kick in the face for Anthony Griffin. I think it's not quite right. I think, as the story stands, Griffin has been told that they are going to go out to market and they're going to start looking at other coaching possibilities. And at the same time, my understanding is that Griffin won't reapply for the job.
I'll tell you what I think. I think that they want to get Jason Riles, and I think that the Melbourne Storm, with Bellamy leaving, I believe at the end of the season they'll make a huge play at Riles, and the Dragons are thinking if we don't go and get Riles as soon as possible, we may lose him, and Melbourne will get him. That's my read on it.
Either way, Braith, it's weak-kneed leadership by the St George Illawarra Dragons.
It's embarrassing.
To be in this position after 3 or 4 rounds, to be contemplating this type of discussion around whether the coach should reapply. Will he reapply? There was a board meeting held today. I can tell you that. Hook wasn't there. Griffin wasn't involved in that board meeting. He wasn't asked to reapply for his job today or anything in that regard, but he was told earlier in the pre-season that they would be scouring the game for potential options. Now, the mere fact that they told the coach that back then is ludicrous. It's crazy. They had last year to make that call and start this season afresh. What planning, Braith, putting your 2 hats on, what planning can you tell a player as an agent of who the coach is going to be in 23, 24, 25? Where is the strategy in recruitment when you have no idea who the coach is?
Kenny, you said a lot. Coaches who have got a gun to their head to start a season, it's very rarely works out well.
Cannot succeed because they front load all their efforts.
Yep.
They'll bring players back earlier from injury. They'll encourage players to come back earlier from injury because this helps them get those early results. It just does not work. And it just shows, look, I wrote the couple of weeks back, problems with the West Tigers and the problem with St George Illawarra is both teams, more than 20 years into their life cycle now, are still being run as separate entities within their joint ventures. Both clubs need to become one club. St George Illawarra, they're still basically a St George Dragons faction and an Illawarra Steelers faction running the club, and they are in, it's not a bitter dispute, but there's like a jealous wariness of each other. One side doesn't want to spend the money on, so the other side won't spend the money. And because of that, they just have no success. They don't plan. They're not all pushed in the same direction together. And this kind of management from a football club is embarrassing. It is. The good clubs, they go out and they just pick the coach, talk to him, done, sealed.
Yep.
Well, Ben Hunt's their best player too, and he's very close to Hook. So this
and he came out a week ago,
history. Like last year, the Tigers basically did the same thing with Maguire. You knew he was a dead man walking. When Bennett was at the Broncos and they made the determination they were going to get rid of him, it just turned sour. So you're 2 games into their season. They've performed pretty well in both games, and here they've just pulled the rug straight from under his feet. Because if you're going out to look for a new coach, you're looking for a new coach.
Hook should be walking in and asking, sack me or back me, ultimately.
He should be saying to Dragons, send me your resume. Tell me what you blokes have done. Because I tell you what, as a board, they've hardly covered themselves in glory. And that's a club that just continues to they lose 10% every year. They're just, whatever's going on at that club, and it's going to take a bit of an overhaul. He came in to do the job. They weren't able to back him. They haven't got him behind him and supported him well enough. They had a salary cap that was in all sorts of trouble because people there just did not know how to put a salary cap together. And when you get your salary cap bent out of shape, you can't fix it in an off-season. You can't fix it often in 2 seasons because contracts are now signed for 3 and 4 years. The minimum anyone of any value will sign a contract for is 2 years. It takes at least that time to start to work through the cycle of contracted players and actually get them out of the club so it's not costing you too much. And that's what's been burdening this club for some time now because their salary cap was way out of shape. And that was the problem that they couldn't fix. They've just started to get it back in order. and they've gone to the coach, well, mate, now you fix the cap, we're going to move you out.
Hang on a second, though, because when Mary was coach, like, what are we going back, 4 or 5 years?
4 years,
They had 5 State of Origin players at the time. If I remember correctly, they got to, in 2018, week 2 of the finals, they got beaten by a field goal by South Sydney. And so I guess the flip side of the argument is, has Griffin done enough up until this point to show you that they are going in a completely better and different direction?
No, I'd argue no, he hasn't. But the same token, to my point on salary cap, the reason they had 5 Origin players, because all the money was at the top end. And then once you got below that, there wasn't a lot there. And so there's no depth in the club.
Finals footy,
yeah,
Paul.
but they were never going to win a
cup. And
cup.
they had one bad year when the Jack DeBellin stuff happened.
They were never...
And then it went downhill. That's the truth.
They never seriously were threatening for a competition, though, either. They were making finals.
Hang on a second. 2018, mate, they got beaten by a field goal in the second week of the finals. I thought they had a pretty good season.
That was 5 years ago now.
Yes, and so this is Griffin's, is it his 3rd season?
This is his 3rd season.
And I will argue, now they've got 1 State of Origin player on that same salary cap. They're still spending the salary cap.
Yeah.
And they've got Ben Hunt, full stop, who was signed in 2018. And all their other players, Paul, I said it last week and I'll say it again, we are yet to see the St George Illawarra, the current system, take a player and take him beyond the expectations what you think.
Okay.
You look at clubs like South Sydney, Manly are doing it now, the Roosters, they take local juniors and they turn them into out-and-out superstars. You got one in Travojevic on later.
Yeah.
Dragons haven't done it, mate. They haven't done it for years. The system stinks.
Yeah, but I don't think that all sits on one man. I don't think it all sits on the head coach. Certainly he's there, but if he's got to make every decision by committee, which is their player retention committee, he can't sit there and just pick and choose who he wants like some coaches can do.
One of your favourite sayings, though, Paul, is you don't ask for power, you take power. And a head coach's job is to go in there and run the show. That's what they have to do. That's your job.
Yeah, well,
that's why you're the head coach. You don't listen to a board, you don't listen to anyone, you go and do your job.
Are we to pretend that nobody knew that Anthony Griffin was a dead man walking like late last year?
Guys,
you're
right.
But guys, it's the leadership structure, right? This is a leadership structure that sends out a survey to fans to check whether they should change the name or not.
Yeah, of their club that they've had for 25
right?
years.
So we all knew last year that Hook was going to walk into this season at some point and need to fight for his career. It's a shambles. They should have made the call late last year and started this season afresh.
So who's got to be coaching the Wollongong Dragons next year?
Well, there's some good options.
Miami
out there.
Dragons.
There are some good options.
There's plenty of great
Brave's
options.
100% right. If Riles is available, he's one of the guys at the top of your list. You've got a guy like Dean Young that's proven himself at the Cowboys, and he's got, blood in that club. You've got Ben Hornby. Like, if you're going to make a decision, you get in
You've
first.
also got Des Hasler. You've got
Des
Shane
Hasler,
Flanagan.